and straight I will repair to the curragh of Kildare, for it's there I'll find tidings of my dear.
Hello and welcome back to Lilies Livin. This is episode 8, where we speak to past Kildare stars about the current Kildare team and about their careers as well. It's Brian McDonald and Kevin O'Neill here, bringing you through the next hour, talking all things Kildare. Kev, are we over the hangover of last week and the drubbing against the Dubs? The qualifier draw was made this morning. It's another trip back to Croke Park, and it's probably the toughest draw we could have got in Mayo.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too soon to say the hangover is gone, to be honest with you. Excuse me for my voice, Brian. I was digging a bit over the weekend there, so you may put up with me for this one. But yeah, I think it's a bit too soon to say the hangover is gone. When you lose to your closest rivals in excess of 10 points in any occasion, particularly in Leinster final, it's going to hurt for a while. And you know what? I hope it's not gone in the sense that, we chatted to James Kavanagh the last day there, and the sessions that previous managers have put teams through after a big loss. It's all part of the process, and I'd like to think that this Kildare team will take some sort of learnings from that Dublin game and bring it to Croke Park again next weekend. But it'll be a tough one, as you said. Mayo, they're starting to motor again. They're a great team with momentum behind them. We feel a little bit deflated down in Kildare, so they'll take a serious G up from this management team to get the lads going again. But I'm sure they can do it. I'm sure the Kildare lads will be very eager to right the wrongs, the last day on Croke Park. But yeah, it'll be an interesting affair on Saturday evening.
We've two different opinions on the draw, because I was having up through the WhatsApp group that we're in earlier on, and you were saying we were happy we got a challenge and to see where we are, and there's no point getting one of the supposed weaker teams in the draw. I suppose we could have got Clare or Cork, who we would have fancied on paper. We probably would have went in as favourites anyway. But I'm of the different ilk. I would have rathered we got Cork or Clare, because I was looking at the sort of even ahead to the potential quarterfinal opponents, and it was one of either three, Kerry, Derry or Galway. And had we avoided Kerry and got Derry or Galway, we maybe wouldn't have been favourites going into that one, but we would have had a good chance and a decent chance of getting to an All-Ireland semi-final. So I would have rathered we just had the easiest game as possible on paper. I think this is the worst possible draw, and the venue again isn't doing us any favors. It's not in a nice regional ground, which will be full and a big atmosphere. We already know it's a double header with or after Roscommon, Clare on Saturday evening. Never mind being half full, it's probably going to be a quarter full Croke Park.
I hear you on that point, and maybe another game against, I suppose, a weaker team, as you said, to give the lads some sort of confidence going into a quarter final, how we got over those teams. But just from my side, eventually, if we're going to make any sort of remark in the All-Ireland series now, which is obviously, the only thing we have, left to play for, we're going to go up against a big team in Croke Park eventually. And I just think after the Dublin game, it's very hard to know, where Kildare are really at, because it was a positive league campaign, beat the Dubs, we beat Monaghan, got a draw against Kerry. As Kildare fans, I think we naturally kind of gravitate towards the positives as opposed to the negatives, and maybe the Dublin game since has shown us there's a good bit of work to be done there to kind of reach that top table. So for me, a draw against Mayo, I think they're nowhere near the Dublin and Croke Park level. Well, not from what I've seen this year, but they're starting to motor well. And it'll just give us a sense of where Kildare are really at. I don't think it'd be the upset of the season if we were to win on Saturday, not by any means. I think you have the players to really put it up and put a decent performance, but whether we will or not, we won't know till Saturday night. And I just think it's that kind of ambiguity that I want silenced finally on Saturday evening. And either we're looking ahead to next year then, or we're marching on to a quarter final. And look, if we were to beat Mayo and go to a quarter final, then you'd have to say there's serious momentum behind us going to that quarter final as well. So a couple of different angles on it, but ultimately I think it's better that we're against a stronger team.
Yeah, I put it up on our Twitter page at Lilies Livin Pod earlier on, just asking our followers their initial thoughts on the draw and the venue when the draw was made this morning. Had a couple of comments in. Des Dalton said it's Croke Park's payback for Newbridge or nowhere, which you wouldn't put it past them. The unofficial Kildare fans page said the place will be half empty. We will hear the seagulls more than the crowd. Yet another opportunity missed to have a heaving stadium somewhere in the country. Saturday evening, somewhere like Tullamore, Clonus, or Roscommon, but now we wade through the North Inner City Dublin to that place once again. And Evan Wine says it will be tough, especially in Croker, but we have to get behind the team. The last day out wasn't our day, but these men need our support this Saturday. Let's go out and support the team. So we can only echo those comments from Evan. I'll be heading up. It's my first championship game that I will be attending. I am in the country this weekend, so I'm really looking forward. I'm sort of dreading it, but I'm looking forward to it as well. Like I definitely think that we can, and eventually we were talking earlier on in the series about eventually our day in Croke Park will come. So why not? Why can't it be this week? And I did see Glenn Ryan obviously had a bit of foresight because he was actually at the Mayo Monaghan qualifier over the weekend. So hopefully he's got a good insight into Mayo's tactics and how they're going to play ball. We'll go on to our guest, and I'm sure we're going to discuss it in more detail with him as well throughout the episode. He was a very exciting forward who burst onto the scene under Kieran McGeeney in 2011. He won an under-21 Leinster title. He won a National Football League Division 2 title as well. It is St Lawrence's man, Podge Fogarty.
Right outside of the field. This is a better angle for Podge Fogarty. He struck it beautifully. There's a goal between the teams again. Yeah, good score.
Podge Fogarty, thanks a million for joining us. Before we discuss the qualifier draw and the Kildare setup this year, I want to have a quick look back at your club career. So I think you're one of the first, if not the first, South Kildare man we've had on the pod this season. Apologies to anyone else if I've forgotten them, but you're Larry's man, your senior club. I know you've siblings, I think, who play for the club as well. Has it always been sort of a family thing and close to the family, Lawrence's?
Yeah, since I can remember, I suppose 4 or 5 kicking ball, starting out with Lawrence's, and played all up along 12s, 14s, got involved with Kildare development squads then at 14, and I suppose growing up playing with Lawrence's then, as a young lad, the dream was always wanting to play for Kildare and represent the club at senior. Really enjoyed it. Probably didn't at my own age group, but Lawrence has never really had much success through the underage, but just really enjoyed playing football. Like, it was probably football came first and school secondly, and in fairness at home, like, there was never any major pressure put on school or anything either. Like, there was football. We were probably a fairly football orientated family. But yeah, I always kind of enjoyed my football. I suppose I wasn't used to success at the start, so I was never, like, obviously as you grow up, you want to win, but just really always enjoyed getting down and playing games, and as I say, then as you grow up, I suppose, is always going to the Kildare matches and wanting to play on that kind of big stage was always kind of the dream as you grow up.
Yeah, did Larry's have their one and only senior championship win was in 2009, and it was a comprehensive win over Moorfield. They went in as big underdogs and they bet Selbridge in a very exciting semi-final as well. I think a late goal towards the end of extra time put you through. Do you remember that much of that campaign? Was it maybe a year or two too soon?
Yeah, I started playing in 2010 unfortunately, but it was massive for the club at the time. I think they went even the 3 or 4 years previously to that. They lost Sarsfields to beat them in the county final, and they were always thereabouts semi-finals and pushing. So to finally get over the line was massive, massive for the club. They were great days, like to be even going in as supporting kind of, and getting to county finals. It probably wasn't like with Lawrence's. It wasn't. You're not from Moorfield or Sarsfields where it's the norm every year you're heading into the county final, but they were great times. And even myself, when I started playing in 2010, my first 3 years playing senior football, we were beaten in 3 county semi-finals, and at the time it's gas, like, you think, I wouldn't say we were breezing to semi, we were comfortably getting to semi-finals, like when we were well competing with Moorfields and the Sarsfields and the stronger teams, and you kind of think, I remember just when I started playing, you just think, we'll reach a county final at some stage and you'll have that day. And we were beaten in 3 semi-finals while I was playing, and probably 3 games that you look back on at the time and say we should have won. We missed 2 penalties against Thai and one of them, and we were beaten by 2 points. And Sarsfields beat us in 2 of them. I don't know if our club has ever beaten Sarsfields in the Championship. They're one team that we struggled to beat. But it's probably now when you look back, like it's that would be the regret, like not pushing on and winning the county championship back then. Because it was a real opportunity, and as I say, as a young lad, you think our chance will come, but team one thing or another, and players retired and stuff like that. It never happened, unfortunately. But yeah, even to be involved in them games, like we had a quarter final against Moorfield one year, and we were a right battle, like, and I think they were coming off the back of they could have won a Leinster championship in a few years before, and to beat big teams like that with big players were great days for the club. Even to be involved in them games, like it was valuable.
Yeah, you're still a senior club now. I think in the preliminary draw for this year, you have Raheens. Have the sort of expectations changed as to sort of what you're hoping to achieve coming into a championship season this year? Is it more so like you're maybe not looking to go the whole way, but just go as deep as you can?
Yeah, like I suppose the talk at the start of the year was always I'm sure it goes on in every club, they want to win a championship. Realistically, I suppose everyone knows there's a bit of a gap maybe between your top 4 or 5 teams in Kildare now and the rest of the chase and pack to try and catch up with them. Look, it's funny how it goes. Like last year, things were struggling still up in Division 1 and things were going bad, and we kind of beat Clane, and it was probably a bit of a surprise, but kind of turned the year then, and we went to beat Castledermot the following week, and we ended up in a quarter final and lost out to Maynooth by 2 or 3 points. And I suppose probably for us to get to a semi-final would have been huge, where, as I say, go back 7 or 8 years and we were expecting to get there, and that was maybe when that was the real big game then. But so maybe expectations change in that regard. I suppose probably for a lot of rural clubs as well, like like the likes of Carbery there, like when we were competing, I think Carbery reached 2 county finals around that time, like, and they're probably similar to us now. I wouldn't say they've went miles back, but same as us, like they're trying to rebuild them, and probably similar to that with us, like with Raheens now in the first game. To be honest with you, looking at the draw, I don't know if you're better off winning or losing, because you lose and you get an easier group probably. But that's just the setup of it. But look, you want to win all your games. Raheens be a tough one in the first round, but yeah, I would say expectations wouldn't be as high. Like around that time, would you be overly surprised if we got to the county final and won it? No. Hopefully we can this year, but I'm sure outside the club would be surprised to see Lawrence in around that. But look, there's good management in place, and lads are keen down there. That's all you can ask for.
Just sticking on the Lawrence team for a minute, Podge. I want to chat about Podge O'Neill, club many years. Obviously, he was involved in a Kildare team, Kildare set up at senior level when you were in the fold as well. How was it for him? Playing with him at club level, but also having him there in the Kildare seniors, when you came into the squad.
Yeah, brilliant. Pádraig and his brother Tommy, like the two massive clubmen, and they're brilliant with underage and everything down there, and what he gives for the club, like you couldn't ask for a kind of a better clubman. He's brilliant, and I probably actually didn't play a whole lot of club senior before I got involved with the Kildare seniors. I might have played a few championship games in the following year. I was lucky enough to go in, but to have Pádraig there, starting to, it was kind of a funny one, to be honest with you, travelling over to, probably would have looked up to Pádraig and a good bit like him playing for Kildare, and within a year or two then all of a sudden I'm travelling over to Hogfield for training. But brilliant club man, and still is, like him and Tommy. I suppose the age might be catching them up with a bit, like with injuries, but jeez, they don't hold back. Like you go over there, you go down and train them at the club, and the two of them are pushing to be winning every run, and still like they're trying to prove something. But Pádraig, and look, he'd a massive few years for Kildare. He's probably one of the players that went a bit underappreciated. But like I know under Kieran McGeeney there, especially, like he was probably one of the first names on the team sheets. And the work he done up and down, and he'd always chip in with a score too. And it's the same at club level. Then he doesn't, like, you think at this stage he'd be taking it handy, or so they might try put him in centre forward or full forward sometimes to try give him a bit of a break, but he'll still find himself out around the middle working back. And so maybe I could take a leaf out of his book in that way. But yeah, no, brilliant, and it was brilliant to have him for myself as well, both club and county.
Before we go on to your inter-county career, I just want to speak about the sort of immediate future and concerns of Lawrence's in the league campaign. It's still in Division 1, obviously. Dare I say you're in a precarious position just outside the relegation zone at the moment. I think there's 8 games played, a win and 3 draws. What's the or what's the sort of format? Do you know what teams you still have left to play and what you need to stay up? And is that the sort of main objective at the moment before looking at the championship?
Yeah, absolutely. We've Clay now Friday night, another big game, and Selbridge and Confi left. It's been a funny league, to be honest. Like, our only win has come against Naas, which
it was a big win as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good win, and we played well, and we were fully deserving to the win. They're probably Naas are probably a team that we've had their measure of down when we have them at home the last few years. Even when the lads turned around after matches, we can never beat us down there. But it just seemed, but like that, in fairness, they seem to be flying. They're a team in form, but yeah, like that was a big win, and the 3 draws. Like, could have won and we could have lost them, but
yeah,
I think we scored a last-minute goal against Carberry to go 3 points up, and while we were celebrating, they had the ball down the other end and stitched it. And I think we actually lost that game, lost by a point. But yeah, like we've been playing reasonably well in games. We've been competitive, drawing with Sarsfields and say beating Naas. But yeah, definitely a priority to stay up. Like, they're the games you want to be playing in the league, especially when you're playing senior championship. You want to be playing your Naas, your Sarsfields, Moorfield. Obviously the standard you want to be at. I don't know if another win will keep us up. Probably definitely need 2, but 1 might do the job. And yeah, it's a big game again against Clay now Friday night. In that regard, I haven't played a whole lot myself. I've kind of been struggling with injuries and unfitness this year, but only getting back into it. But hopefully get back and try to add something to it. But yeah, no, definitely it's a priority to stay in Division 1. Like, you know, it's, when you slip down to Division 2, it is competitive as well, and it's not a case of that you'd shoot straight back up. It can take a few years, or like what I said, the Moorfield, especially when you look at the league, like when it comes out to fixtures, you see a tie, Moorfield, Sarsfields. They are the games you look forward to playing and competing in. So yeah, that's definitely want to stay in Division 1. And we've probably been last few years we've been thereabouts going down, but we've pulled it out of the bag. So hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the league table here. Anyone from 7th down, which is Clane and 7th, like if you beat Clane on Friday night, they'll be dragged into it as well. From 7 points, Clane, and Selbridge 6, Castledermot yourselves on 5, and Carberry on 4. So
it's funny that the results have been. It's been a funny league in terms of teams.
Everyone's beating everyone. Yeah,
it's hard to nearly get a grasp. But,
and just to go back to the championship, it's probably the Naas Moorfield game where, you know, the loser, if anyone's in the loser brackets, like they could be in one of their groups as well. So the championship is going to be really open, as you said, this year. Yeah. We'll go on to your inter-county career. Under 21s, you won a Leinster championship in 2013. I think we spoke. Tommy Mulick captained that team. We were speaking to him a couple of weeks ago. It was a 3-point win over Longford. And I was looking back at the team sheet for that earlier on today, and it's just full of senior players now. You started that game, you played, you had a couple of scores as well. What's your memories of that day?
Yeah, brilliant. I suppose I haven't had a whole lot of success kind of in teams, and that's probably the standout win to date. But yeah, like it was a talented team, like as you say, when you look at the team sheet. I'd say it's probably a record for lads that off an underage team that went through and played senior. But it was great. It was a bit of a funny one, to be honest with you. I had joined the army and I was doing the army training at the time, and probably for that 6 or 7 months while the training was going on, I was getting out here and there kind of for training, and I was after being involved with the seniors for a year or two previously, and under Kieran McGeaney, and he was kind of head of the 21s as well, so he kind of knew me and understood that I had to go and do the army training, where if it was a manager that came in and I explained, well, I might be able to make training, I might have got the chop, or he mightn't have given me the same time that Kieran did. But so it was a funny one. Like I remember going up, leading into the Leinster final, and we were doing a week on the ground in up around the Wicklow Mountains, and it was probably the strangest prep for a game, like sleeping out in the mountains a few nights before games and trekking across them. And to be honest with you, even leading up to the game, I didn't know what time I was getting out at. I had no phone, I didn't know what time I was getting out at, who was catching me. But eventually, anyways, made it out of there and down to Port for the game. And yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant to taste that bit of success. That team at minor, I think we beaten Dublin after 4 or 5 games and replays, and Longford had beaten us in the semi-final. And that was like a massive, at the time, massive disappointment. So it was a kind of an opportunity to get that bit of revenge, and it's not sure the qualities of the team that we had. And yeah, it was a tough game on the night. It was a tough game, but we got over the line, thank God. Probably even still looking back, like going on, Galway beat us in the semi-final, and geez, we kicked a good lot of wides that day, and we probably as a team nearly still underachieved. To say that the quality in it, and even like I don't think Kevin Feedy, he was over playing soccer at the time. Like he was another one that was underage for that as well. Like that was away, but like with Tommy Moolick, Sean Hurley, Paul Crippen, like all in big player. We were a big side, and yeah, no, it was that was probably the standout win of I suppose my career within the under-21 championship, and you know what to do with lads that were we were a close-knit group, like good friends, and yeah, it was probably just a pity that we fell short of Galway in the semi-final. I think if there's one game I could play again, that'd probably be the one.
Yeah, you were saying that you were already part of the senior squad with McGeeney at that stage. It was the year before, I think you might have came onto the scene with the Division 2 league final win over Tyrone in Croke Park. You came on late on and kicked a couple of scores in that game. So even though you said you haven't had too much success, that was sort of 2 years in Kildare panels, a national title, an under-21 Leinster championship. Were you thinking that's what maybe this is intercounty football in Kildare is going to be all about, getting to finals, winning medals?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, to be honest, like as I hadn't been playing a whole amount of time with the club before, I got a phone call to go into Kildare Juniors were kind of going on at the time, and I think you had to be in there for a few weeks to make the step up, and Tony Kelly had rang me about going in there. So I went in there training, and in fairness, there was lads like I'd be very good friends with Fionn Dowell, and he was after getting called into the senior panel the year before, and I see there was an opportunity that he wasn't afraid to bring in young players. So I done a few weeks training there and played well in 1 or 2 matches, and Niall Crew had said to me, "Come over, you're training with us tonight," and it was brilliant. It was brilliant to get involved. Like it's class growing up, like you literally are looking at your Johnny Dials, Ronan Sweeney, Dermot Early, and like going over to train with them, and they probably all reached their peak nearly when we were hitting 29, 30, like. And you were getting the opportunity to, after growing up and watching them, to step in and train with them. And I remember my first night training, they were just playing a match, and he threw me in wing forward, and just ran around, like, running around and tried to get on ball, and just to be involved was great. And you know, for the first year, I was probably just happy to be there. And I remember then he kind of spoke to me and said, "Look, it's nice to be in here, but now you push on, and you're in here for a reason." So, yeah, and I think I was supposed to make my debut 2 or 3 times, and I rolled my ankle once, and we were playing a Burn Cup game. I was called off, and I thought, are we ever going to get the chance to wear the white jersey? And I think I ended up making my debut, and it was a championship game against Wicklow, and didn't play a whole lot that year. After that, kind of came on in 1 or 2 games, and then the following year, through that league, I was getting a few games here and there, and I remember leading into that league final, Kieran had organised a training camp to Portugal, and it was great because we finished up the league and we had a 2-week gap, and we flew out to Villamore for a training camp for a week, and it was brilliant just to nearly live like a professional for a week. And I know myself at the time, I kind of hit form in training and kind of got a bit of confidence, and I was moving well, and came back and with a week leading into the league final. And I felt that probably when I look back, like if I ever was terrible probably to say a peak at that 19 or 20, but I felt really good at the time and I was moving well. And then I got the opportunity in that league final, and you need a bit of luck, you need a few balls to come your way, but I felt sharp and good, and it was great. It was a great day. Like it was brilliant for my family were up there and stuff, and to win something in Croke Park with Kildare and everything that went with it, like it was brilliant. It was a brilliant experience, brilliant to be involved, and it's great.
Yeah, you mentioned John Doyle, what it was like training with him, like so many of our guests on our previous episodes. It was yourself and him who were sort of trading point for point at the end of that final to kick Kildare across the line. You obviously played alongside him, and he also managed your Sigerson Cup team when you were at Maynooth in university, obviously part of the setup with Kildare now as well. I'd imagine, even from a player's point of view, or a student playing in football in Maynooth, he must have been someone for those young players would have looked up to and wanted their gift all to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Johnny's I've known him a long time. He married me auntie there, just going back 13 or 14 years, and just I remember as a 14 or 15-year-old walking in, and he was after coming over to her house and amazed that Johnny was there, and probably I'd be quite close with Johnny now, kind of, and as the years went on, like he'd be a good friend and always good to me as well, especially when I joined up with the Kildare panel. But and then to work under him in Maynooth, it was good. I enjoyed it. I think half the reason I nearly went back to college was start chatting with him one night, and he was talking about, are you eligible to do any courses? And I ended up leaving the army and going back to Maynooth and playing under him, but it was great, really enjoyable. And then Johnny was great. He Glenn Ryan in with him 1 year, and he Davy Burke in another year. And so there was plenty of mix, and we were probably a bit unlucky. We didn't have more success with the college. But yeah, and then playing football with Kildare, like sure you'd see what he does outside training as well. Like I think he's still running 20 and 30 Ks there. And I went for a run with him there during the lockdown, and I know never again.
We know who to ask to ask Johnny then to come on to our show now. We found our man, our inside man to get on to him. I want to touch on your injuries, because you were quite unfortunate with them for a couple of years. I think it was the qualifier game down in Cork in 2015, where we talked about that game with Tommy Mullick as well, actually, on this pod. But I think you did your back in that day, and you sort of went on and played for your club a bit, which might have done more damage in the long term than good at the time. Can you give us a bit of an insight into how that injury affected your career? You were out of the intercounty set for a few years before Cian O'Neill brought you back in, and I'd imagine that's very tough for you, especially as you were a younger player at the time, and you're watching the players that you played with at under 21 level, go on and regularly line out for the senior side. So that must have been tough mentally as well as physically at the time.
Yeah, definitely. It was under Jason, and we had a great win in Cork, and unfortunately Kerry gave us a bit of a trimming. But I was having just minor back trouble at the time, and went back and was playing with the club, and it got worse and worse. And we were playing Sarsfields in a quarter final, and I woke up that morning, I just couldn't tie my shoelaces. I remember I went down to Lawrence's to try. If I got it warmed up, kind of, I was able to get moving a little bit, and before it seize up again when I stopped. And I remember going down to Lawrence's to try run a few laps just to kind of loosen myself out and try playing. Got through the game. We were well beaten, but for probably the next few months, I had a bulging disc. I had a bulging disc was the injury in my back, and I was kind of told to try to rehab and avoid getting surgery. And anyone that knows me, anyway, I made an attempt at it, but I wouldn't be the most disciplined in my rehab, and as much as I make an effort at it. But I kind of dragged on for a few months where I was trying to get it right. I was under a good bit of pressure with it, to be honest with you, just on a day-to-day basis, even going into work and different things. So I eventually got the surgery in Santry, and it went well, thank God. And after that, I was gone for a few months, and I ended up back playing then I joined back up with, I think I'd started with Mayo at the time. I joined back up, and that was kind of when I got training again. And we played Kildare in a challenge match one of the nights, and I played reasonably well. And Keane had said to me about coming in, and I had planned away. I was on a trip away that summer with the family. I was visiting my brother in New Zealand, and I said, I have these plans. I said, I do have aspirations of playing with Kildare again, but I said, I won't be thinking of training up in the summer. They were probably into February, could have been January, February. And so the following year, in fairness, I got in with the seniors, and I think we went back training around December, end of November, the start of December. And look, I probably, one of my issues that I've always struggled with is carrying the weight. And it's gas, like I probably, since I've been involved in senior teams, when I went back, I always had them issues. And it was always myself, like, and Tommy Mullock, when we went back after 3 or 4 months off, we were the two that were nabbed straight away. But when you're in that bubble and you get the month or two pre-season, you get going again and cut a few pounds and that. But probably what I struggled with was when I was out of that bubble, and probably down to myself that I wouldn't have myself conditioned enough for joining. Like when you join up with a senior panel now, them lads are all extremely fit. You nearly don't need to do running. A manager doesn't need to do running. They're extremely fit. But Keane had said to me about coming in, and I was early enough in January. He said, look, just about your weight and that kind of thing. And I said, fair enough. And it was a bit disappointing. It was a bit disappointing, and that was grand for a year or two. And then when Jack O'Connor came in, he rang me up and he says, "You're what weight are you?" And I said, "Whatever." And he says, "Sure, you're a big lad, you're entitled to carry it." But he said, in fairness, he said, "Look," he said, "come in." He says, "I don't expect you to lose weight straight away. We'll give you a bit of time." He says, "I'll be honest with you, maybe even through the league, we mightn't see a whole lot of you, but we'll try to get you into shape." And we do an extra bit, which was good of him. And I actually really enjoyed the few months training. It took a bit of time, but probably come February or March, I was getting into decent shape and I was playing well enough. And I pulled my hamstring. I remember he had said to me about being involved I was in the panel for the Armagh game, and I pulled my hamstring on the Thursday night and set me back a few weeks. And we played another 2 or 3 league games maybe, and we came into COVID. And just a few months off, and we came back in then later towards the end of summer. And in fairness to him, I came back in, I'd probably put back on half a stone, or I wasn't where I was anyway when we left. And he just said, look, it was a short, they cut 2 or 3 lads, it was a shorter run into championship. They didn't have time, and it was fair enough. It was disappointing. Yeah, it was disappointing at the time, because like I love going over. If they're training 3 times a day, I'll be there. And I probably just struggle on my own to keep that real discipline, to keep in that shape. And that was that. And then most recently, then I was back in. I went in for trials at the start of the year. I said, "Should we go across?" And pulled my hamstring again at the trials. And it was probably unfortunate. I wasn't. Johnny had rang me on the Monday, and in fairness, he said, "Look, we're short a player." He said, "I was supposed to do the trials on the Friday," and he said, "We're short a player. No panic if you can't, but if you come across," he said, "great." And so I said, "Right, sure, go on, I'll go across." And I was tight and I didn't like pulling up. I kind of half knew myself, but I said, "Look, sure, know yourself, you're kind of trying to prove a point or whatever." And I pulled my hamstring. And in fairness to Glenn, he said to me, he said, "Look," he said, "it is what it is. Keep tipping away, and we might have a look at you again. I'll give you a chance maybe at the end of January." So I done my own bit of training, and at one part now I'm like, well, is he just telling me that, or is he? And in fairness, I'll be talking to Johnny, and Johnny said, "Oh, he will. Just keep doing a bit." And in fairness, Johnny done a few sessions with me. And I played a game at the start of February, the second team were playing, and Johnny rang me the night before, and I said, "Johnny, where am I going?" Like, I said, "I'm probably not as fit, or not up to the fitness of that of the pre-season that you've under your belts, and he said, come on in. Nothing to lose anyway. And I went in. I was dreading going across, to be honest with you, because but went in and he brought me on for 20 or 25 minutes, and I've had a right game. I was delighted going away from there. I kicked 1-2 and played well, and jeez, maybe I will be back in. And then Glenn rang and he said, you played well and done well, just from a fitness point of view, just be a bit disappointing in that regard. And that was it. And look, if there was anyone that needed the pre-season training, it was definitely me, and it would have been nice to be in there and have a crack at it. But look, it was what it was or whatever. But as I say, I was lucky enough that I did have a great few years, like the years under Kieran and Jason, like, just were great. It was great to have the opportunity to be in among a senior panel and playing some great games in around the country, and probably disappointing in the later stages between look, I can blame luck and blame one thing, but probably a lot of it, like, down to myself, kind of. Maybe once you're in that bubble and you're constantly pre-season, year in, year out, you've a better chance. But just between one thing or another and injuries, it didn't work out. But sure, no, look, it was definitely not against any of the managers or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very honest reflection of how it went for you sort of towards the latter stages anyway. But it must have been incredibly hard with the injuries to sort of keep a clean slate of fitness for a long period of time. If you did, even now, if you got maybe a year or two of decent fitness in and stayed injury free, and you got a call to come down to trials, would you head across in early next year or the following year?
Yeah, I thought that's not too much. I kind of haven't thought about it too much since. In fairness to Glenn, he said to me, "Look, the door's not closed. Get back, get fit, and the door's not closed for next year." But look, I kind of, if I can get back, I promise you, if I went a month or two after I played the game with that challenge with Kildare, and I said, "Oh, here, where are we going?" or whatever, and then I had one or two underneath, and I didn't really put a whole lot in, and I'm probably a bit behind as well when he kind of getting back into it now towards the end of the league. Look, I'll try to just go back and enjoy the football with Lawrence and try to get fit again and kick a few scores and see what happens. But if it happened, it happened. But like, I wouldn't have too many regrets or anything in that. Like, I enjoyed my time while I did play for there, and as I say, it was a great few years, and no major big regrets.
We won't rule it out. Anyway, we were talking about COVID there you mentioned COVID there and Jack O'Connor and sort of the shortened lead up into the season. How did you keep yourself busy during COVID? Because I think Kev actually was keeping up today with what we were up to in during that time.
Videos, Podge, of you kind of giving a couple of skills demonstrations. You're keeping.
That was, in fairness,
there's 20 or 30 of them, I think.
I think I was cut out the worst. In fairness, it was a good one. Don had set us all up, but it's funny when during the COVID, I live in a home with the mother, and she had gone to Australia just before the whole COVID had kicked off, and I said we're good friends with Fionn Dowd, and he was over one of the days, and I think he was a close contact or something, and we had to isolate for 2 weeks. And then Fionn said, "So this is great. I think he moved in for the summer." He said, "Sure, I'll stay here. I'll go over here for the summer." But sure, of course, when Don had sent out this message, he was texting Fionn. He says, the both of them had me set up. So, Fionn said to me one day, he says, "You doing these skills or what? You doing the video?" And I said, "No." I said, "No, it's not my thing. I'll leave it." And he says, No, you should. And he was kind of at me. I was thinking, why? Like, what's this? So we went out anyways. He says, come on, we'll go out and do it. And next thing he was taking videos, and we were having a right old laugh through it, and the different mistakes and all. But I didn't know it was all these videos were going across to the Don, and I was badly stung. I was badly set up and badly stung. It was all a bit of crack anyway.
Come here, before we move on to the current Kildare team, Pod, I kind of actually, you mentioned something interesting earlier about Pádraig O'Neill and how you felt, he was potentially a bit underrated and kind of went under the radar in terms of, you know, the limelight during that McGeaney year, and obviously the Jason Ryan as well. You know, you were training week in, week out with these lads at you know, back in the early, we'll say teens, between 11 and 15 or whatever it was. And over the years, is there any other players that you feel kind of also went under the radar and you saw them putting serious work in behind the scenes and really enjoyed playing with them, you know, on match day as well?
Yeah. As I think back, like, to be honest with you, like, when at that time, like that, most years I remember, like, under, like, with Kieran McGeaney, like, it was, the effort was just savage from, like, everyone, and it was like, there was a great knit, and it was just, football came first, and that was it for everyone, and it was brilliant. Like, was there anyone that put in more effort than others? I don't know. Like, we trained nearly, not every day, but so there wasn't too many days off, and like, it was great. It's funny, like, when I look back, like, say, when I was with playing in that time, and then you go back, like, I had 2 years away, like, when the back, and I went in under Keane O'Neill, it was mad, the change of personnel. Like, it was nearly like a whole different group, and I was kind of like, Jesus, it was mad, probably the transition of different players. But if I look back on hard to know, like, I think everyone kind of always got a fair crack. It was just the A versus B games used to be like, they used to be savage. Remember, they used to play, like, they play games where the keeper had to have a ball set up on the 21, and there'd be 2 or 3 people along the line, and if the ball went out, it was thrown straight back in. And, like, the game, it'd be easier going to do a running session. The games used to be just up and down and up and down. So, to be honest with you, if you were going well and in form, you wouldn't be afraid, like, to throw in whoever was on form and throw them in. And you'd be found out, like, if you were off the pace in them games. Like, they were just, it was serious training, but it was great. Just football coming to the summer. It was just football and matches, and brilliant. And, like, if I look back underrated, it's hard to know. Like, it was mad. I always used to love. It's funny. I used to love playing with Tomas O'Connor, because he was such a ball winner and just coming the loop, and every time he'd give it to you. And I probably used to nearly hate that. If I was coming on, it'd be probably for Tomas, or if I started, it'd be Tomas coming on for me. We were probably both considered, you know, the big full forward or whatever at the time, and, like, I would have loved maybe more opportunities to get to play in beside him, because I'd say, geez, 9 times out of 10 he was going to give it to you, or 99 times out of 100. But in terms of, like, everyone got a fair crack. It was great. As I say, with Porrick, like, he probably just, like, I probably would have said, like, he gave a lot to Kildare, and in the end, then I think he was kind of just, when Keane took over, and manager certain take the different players, and for whatever reason Keane didn't. Porrick kind of went out of fray, and that was it. And I just kind of remember thinking, he gave a lot to Kildare, and, you know, and just like that, I was all over for him. Look, that's the different players come in and players push on, but yeah, I just remember thinking that at the time about Porrick, and I wouldn't say, like, even like Kieran McGeaney would have rated him, Jason Ryan would have rated him, but probably just in the end, I said, just probably fell away or whatever for whatever reason. But, like, he was. Geez, them players are hard-gotten teams that just get around the pitch and get hits in. And, like, he was a massive player for Kildare.
100%, and definitely agree with you on the Tomas O'Connor point. You know, I would have been up at a couple of games, and let's say between 10 and 2012, and he was just such an exciting player to watch in that full forward, like, such a ball winner and deadly fielder of the ball as well. So it was deadly player to watch, kind of from the sidelines as well. And
he was the most laid-back man ever. He was a gas man. I don't think for a man, you'd swear he was in the gym 24/7. I'd say he'd go into the gym and he just saunter around and might do it. Like, I even remember we were doing races over in Johnstown. They done races over 50 yards to see who was the quickest. I remember I couldn't believe it. I thought, didn't think Tomas was that quick. I came down to him and Ollie Lyons in the final, and never Tomas beat him. And I couldn't believe. Don't look at him play, but that was the pace he had as well as the power. Like, he was so man to win a ball.
Come here, this current Kildare team now. Just look at some current analysis. Obviously, we were chatting earlier, myself and Brian, kind of before you come on, about just that Dublin game, and I don't know if you caught last week's episode with James Kavanagh, but there was definitely over after that one. I mean, definitely for the fans' perspective, anyway, we're quite deflated. But 2 weeks on, or a week on now, and obviously it'll be 2 weeks before the Mayo game, which we've drawn the qualifiers. Well, from your own experience being inside the senior camp, like what do you reckon is going on in terms of the internal conversations and the training plan, and how do you build yourself back up from a big trimming like that to go again against a top Division 1 team like Mayo?
Yeah, it was definitely massive disappointment. I was up there and it was great. It was great excitement before the game, and everyone was looking forward to it and thought we were going to give them a good rattle, and it was no different. I thought, I thought we were. It was definitely disappointing. The game was over kind of fairly quick, and it's funny, lads. You'll be talking lads for the game and say, well, as long as we don't sit back and have a go, then it's we were too naive, and so it's probably a mixture. Like in maybe just needed to, even if it was for the first 20 minutes, keep it tight and keep in the game and go and have a go. But look, it's easy for everyone kind of supposed to say, I'm sure they learned lots from the game and that kind of thing. In terms of like moving on, I'm sure it was difficult for lads to go training last Tuesday night. But on the other side of that, like, and I know, like, I'd say Glenn isn't the manager that probably changes a winning team too much. Seems to be that way anyway. But like, for players there, and from myself when I used to be on the bench, like from your panel of 15 to 26, like, obviously they wanted to win the game too. But the silver lining for them is go and train on Tuesday night. Now's the opportunity to go and stake their kind of place in the team. And I'd say them lads were itching to go over there. And I think the position they're in, like if you think about the players, like, Neil Flynn there, and Owen Dial is coming back from injury, David Hyland, there's loads, Aaron Masterson, Paddy Woodgate was flying. Like, they're not, these lads aren't going to weaken the team. Like, they're all experienced, good footballers, and I haven't named another 3 or 4. Like, there's plenty there. So I think for them going across, they would have been sniffing at a place now and thinking now's their opportunity to get back in. So silver lining for them, and they're probably the lads that were going to have to lift the rest of them that were coming off the back of the loss and played. And I'd say the competition over the last 2 weeks has been stronger than ever. Then in terms of that, like, I'd say if they played an A versus B game last week, I didn't hear anything about it, but I'd say it was probably one of the most competitive ones because places were up for grabs, and kind of that's hopefully kind of lifted that whole thing. Obviously, it's a massive game against Mayo, so yeah, hopefully they can lift it. Like, I was fierce impressed with Kildare in the league. I thought, like, they looked extremely fit and sharp, and like geez, there's some class footballers there, and the way, like, especially with the forwards, the way they were scoring. And fair enough, they took the beating against Dublin, but to nearly say they're way off it, or kind of that's the year over. Like, they're still in the business end of things and still going into a massive game. And I do like when the draw came out, when probably the last one you wanted in terms of maybe just get a lesser team to an extent and get a win and go back in. But looking at Mayo, they've beaten them 3 or 4 years ago. Were they overly impressive in this year's championship? Probably not yet. They probably haven't hit their full stride. So yeah, I think they'll look forward to it, and we're going to have to play them at some stage. I think the big disappointment maybe was that it's in Croke Park. Well, I was definitely disappointed to hear that anyway, because I just think there'll probably be 25,000 that, and kind of like a few of the games up there already, a bit of a dead atmosphere.
100%. We were touching on that Croke Park factor before you came on as well. Just actually look at the game itself. Obviously, we came up against Mayo in the last game of the league back in March, and we were caught for a few goals in that game as well. And the feeling afterwards was kind of similar to the Dublin game, that we were a little bit open at the back, and those Mayo forwards, obviously very powerful runners, and they found space inside our 21 fairly easily. Like, do you reckon that's something that Glenn's looking at now to tighten up that defence a bit, coming into this game on Saturday evening?
Definitely. They're probably like there would be a big onus on the management in terms of matchups, and probably, as you say, like Mayo probably do play similar to Dublin in that they're a strong running game, and they'll play a kind of a bit of open football as well and go at you. As you said, they opened up Kildare. I wasn't down at the game in Leitrim, but by the sounds of it, they could have had a few more goals. So I'm sure the management would have learned plenty that day. They would have learned plenty, and again taking more learnings from the Dublin game. So look, if you can see 2 or 3 goals against Mayo, it's going to take a lot to beat them. But you'd imagine that they will have a plan in place to tighten that up in terms of matchups. It'll be important that they get them right, and because if they keep it tight and get enough ball down the other end of the pitch, like Ben is just his form at the minute is, I have to give it to him, like it's top class. His pace and he's electric, and he's like, he's probably shooting at letting down at times before, but he's kicking very well at the minute. And Jimmy, Dan and Dara, like they're scorers, like that. It's a strong forward line, but like I kind of felt sorry. Like I went, myself and Jimmy were in the same class in college, and I'd be chatting to him like up and down a good bit, and like I felt sorry. Before probably the ball had went into the corner into him, or he got his hands on the ball, they were probably 8 or 9 points down against Dublin, and it's probably the game has nearly gone away before. So if Kildare can kind of keep it tight and keep in the game and get enough ball in, like the lads will cause damage and score, and like I said, have options off the bench, and so yeah, you just hope that they keep it tight and say get enough possession and get enough ball in. That I do think the players are definitely there in forwards to do damage, and I think I said just the big, like I would have loved to seen that game been in. Even the brother was down in Leitrim for that game. He said it was a great atmosphere, packed out, and the first half he said was probably one of the best games of football he's watched in a long time, and that was up and down and at serious pace and atmosphere, where I was just disappointed to hear that it was in Croke Park, because I think even Kildare, if you got a crowd behind them in a smaller stadium, like the Newbridge or nowhere thing, but like a crowd can be massive in that regard. But yeah, I wouldn't be writing off Kildare by any means, and hopefully the kind of off the back of that, they will have a bounce now and come into it firing.
And just on that Newbridge or nowhere piece, I've a couple of Mayo mates of mine texting me already, bringing it up, and I'm like, are these Mayo lads, is that like an extra added motivation for them? Because obviously the last time I met them in the qualifiers was that famous game, and it's been brought up so many times in this podcast, but also just generally within GA circuits over the last while. Like, is that something the Mayo lads will be thinking about, do you reckon, coming into this game on Saturday evening?
Maybe so, yeah. Like it's funny, some teams will try, like Tyrone are probably great for it. Like they'll pick at something and make it seem like the world was against them, like and try drawing it for motivation. And yeah, I'm sure them Mayo lads will have it in their back of their head, but like Kildare have beaten a lot of that Mayo team is the same prop. Like Kildare have beaten, so it wouldn't be. Maybe when you go to Dublin, there is a bit like you'd say we think we're closer, but they haven't beaten them. Or go back 3 or 4 years, and Kildare have beaten Mayo in a championship game. Yeah, I'm sure Mayo will have it in the back of their head. Mayo are a funny team. Like they've probably over the last few years, like in qualifiers, they flirted with losing a game like that, because they were always just scraping over teams and stuff like that. And when they got into Croke Park or later on, they've put in some massive performances. But yeah, I'm sure they'll have it in the back of their head, but it's not I don't think it'll massively affect them in that way either. It's a big game for both teams. I'd say when Kildare came out of the pot, I'm sure they weren't rubbing their hands either. Like there's probably other teams that would have preferred to Kildare. So I think it'll be a good game. I can't see Kildare going to Croke Park again and having another 8 or 9 point defeat. I think it's going to be a tight game and hopefully come out the right side of it.
I would have thought the same about the Mayo fans not being as happy to face Kildare as some of the other prospects in the draw. But just looking at the replies to the draw on the Mayo GA handle, some of the replies underneath it have to be very happy with the draw. That's handy. great draw. Come on, lovely stuff. So
Yeah,
the Mayo lads,
look,
the Mayo lads
people
are
are-
obviously very confident, but I'd agree with you completely. Podge, like it's not going to be straightforward for them, and it's definitely not a foregone conclusion, this result. And we know from the league campaign definitely that we have big performances in us, and we have an incredible forward line that you mentioned, a couple of the players there as well. So I'd say it's good. Might be one of the tougher games that Mayo have in this championship, but we look forward to it anyway. That's all we've really time for. We've nearly gone overtime this week, so thanks very much, Podge, for coming on. Hopefully we'll still have a couple more episodes throughout the season, depending on how long we last in the championship. But it was a pleasure to talk to you, and the very best of luck as well for Lawrence's in the league campaign and the championship campaign this year as well.
Cheers, lads. Thanks for having me, and best of luck going forward.
Mulhall, good ball. And beautifully taken with them by Podge Fogarty. That's 2 in a row.
That was Podge Fogarty, Lawrence's man. Fair play to him for coming on. Another good guest. Was he our only ever one from South Kildare?
Andrew McLaughlin, like, is Ellistown South Kildare?
Ellistown. I don't know. I'd have to get out.
Let's get the map up here.
I have to get the atlas out. Yeah. Anyway, great guest, and I'm just quietly confident of an upset. Definitely not as handy as the Mayo fans are suggesting the fixture it's going to be. As I said, it's my first time heading up. Well, my first championship game this season. My last game was actually the league game against Mayo in Carrick. So hopefully it's not the same scoreline as that day. You're unable to make the trip. It's always one of us can make it, one of us can't.
Yeah, straight substitution there. Brian McDonald will be brought on to feature for the Kildare lads in the Hill this weekend. But I won't completely rule out. I just think I have a match this weekend now, so I'll wait and see if the fixtures fall. But look, I have to say, when I saw the draw, I thought it was good to get a Division 1 team, as I said. I think Podge made a few good points there. That the lads will be looking to make amends from the last day at Croke Park. So I do think we'll see a big improvement on the Dublin game. And, like, there's no motivation needed here. Like, you know, these lads know they didn't play their best football against Dublin. They know they're a lot better than that. So I'm sure they'll carry that into the next game. And even that competition within place for the team, that'll be a big thing. Like, lads will see that as an opportunity to come in and make their marks. So we'll see. Are we getting back in the hype train already? I don't know, Brian. What do you reckon?
You have to stay on the hype train until we're knocked out. We're on. We'll always believe. I'm just sickened. Like I said at the start, that like I'm obviously looking forward to going, but like it's a double header in Croker. It's like Roscommon Clare on a 2:45 or 3 o'clock. Like all those fans are going to have to head home after that game, and it will literally be not even half full, not even 20. Like, yeah, we're doing well to have 25,000. The Mayo crowd won't. I doubt will travel in big numbers. So I just know I'm going to be sitting there at Trow and like obviously I'll be geared up for it and whatnot, probably a couple of pints deep at that stage. But I'll just be like, I'd much rather be down in a proper county ground down the country somewhere. But look, it is what it is. You have to take the cards as they're dealt to you. So when we're on next week, we'll either be in a quarter final or out championship. Hopefully we are in a quarter final. We'll definitely will be back next week regardless of result, but we will be dissecting that game in full. If any of our listeners do want to contact us, as always, you can get us on Twitter at Lilies Livin Pod or on Instagram at Lilies Livin. And before we go, Kev, can I just ask you to come next week with a bit more professionalism? Your voice is a disgrace during this episode.
I actually think it's a nice rasp. I think it's nice. I'm going to keep it for next week going forward, Brian. I think it's a nice soothing kind of late night radio vibes here. So yeah, I'm not happy.
Maybe our listeners can decide, but I'm not impressed. You'll be getting a letter during the week. Your first written warning. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll see you on Saturday evening in Croke Park. Bye now.